On the utopian post-scarcity future version of planet Earth depicted in Star Trek, life seems just about perfect. There's no poverty, no war, no institutionalized discrimination. Everybody gets along, everybody has enough, life is peaceful and abundant. Sure, there's the occasional invasion of malevolent cyborgs, infiltration by evil shapeshifters into the highest levels of military and government, and time travel misadventures altering reality to become a brutal authoritarian dystopia, but I did say just about perfect, didn't I? There's room for a few flaws. Speaking of flaws, even before the invasions, conspiracies, hostile alien probes, and other threats routinely faced by people living inside of a sci-fi action-adventure series are accounted for, some of us already consider Star Trek's version of Earth to be less idyllic than it seems. Earth has been described as paradise by multiple Star Trek characters, but, we ask, how can a place truly be paradise when there ain't no baseball? Here's an even better question. Why ain't there no baseball? Seems like a good time to ask these questions, what with the Major League Baseball season having just started. As I wrote the words I'm speaking to you now, my Baltimore Orioles were sitting in last place in their division, but only 2.5 games back. It's early yet. I'm sure they'll be way further behind eventually. Just give them some time. I was talking about this not too long ago with my best friend Jason Harding, the guy who created and does all the actual work on the podcasts I co-host with him, and we both thought it was a bit strange that in the fictional future world of Star Trek, baseball isn't really a thing anymore. You'd think a society with the ideals and priorities of the Earth we see and more often hear about on Star Trek would be even more obsessed with baseball than the striving, soot-covered working-class hordes who flocked to ballparks in the first half of the 20th century. By the way, at the time I wrote this, Jason's team, the San Francisco Giants, were in first place of their division and had lost only a single game, and I think that's great. I'm happy for him. Hey, as long as one of the teams that wear orange and black are doing well, that's all I care about. We learn from Star Trek, specifically from Deep Space Nine, which is the only series that really mentions baseball, that Major League Baseball went out of business in the mid-21st century, which for us baseball fans feels a little too plausible for comfort. I'd like to think in real life the pro game will still be around after 2042, the date DS9 gives for the final World Series, but I don't know. Still, even if having Major League Baseball disappear feels like a sad nod toward realism by the writers of DS9, and even if it fits right in with the things get way worse before they get better vibe Star Trek creators have gone with when filling in their version of late 20th, early 21st century history, that doesn't mean baseball wouldn't have made a comeback. By the time we hit the 23rd or 24th centuries, those people brought back lots of stuff that had fallen out of fashion by the time those Vulcans showed up for first contact. Flip phones, beehive hairdos, democracy. Why not baseball? Think of the values you learn when you play baseball, or hell, even when you become a dedicated fan of baseball. Teamwork. Everybody has to work together toward a common goal. There's room for individual achievement and glory, but the most celebrated heroes are the ones whose efforts lift up the team. And the most coveted prizes, pennants, championships, are won by the team as a whole, not by individuals. Sportsmanship. The players on the team you're playing against are your opponents, not your enemies. You compete against them, you do your best to defeat them on the field, but you don't hate them. Unless one of you is a team from Boston and the other is a team from New York. Or one of you is a team from San Francisco and the other is a team from Los Angeles. Or one of you is a team from Philadelphia and the other is a team from Pittsburgh. You know what? Just because there are exceptions, that doesn't mean it's not still a rule. Fair play. There are rules to the game, and we all follow the rules to protect the integrity of the game, and so that after the game, players and spectators alike can have confidence that the winning team won because they were the better team on that day, not because they took liberties or stole an advantage through underhanded tactics. Permissible cheating, underhanded tactics are fine up to a point. I mean, let's not be prigs. It's normal and healthy in any sport or any interplanetary uniformed service for there to be a certain amount of rule bending or, fuck it, even rule breaking, as long as you don't take it too far and you don't get your ass caught. Diversity on the baseball team, as in Starfleet. As in, by the way, life. Diversity is a strength to be embraced and celebrated. Not all baseball players look the same, or come from the same place, or are equally good at the same skills. While being a successful ball player, especially at a high level of competition, requires a certain baseline of athletic ability, some players excel at hitting, some at base running, some at fielding, some at pitching. Each defensive position has demands that are unique to that position. Each batter has their own style and particular situations in which they tend to do their best. Each pitcher has their own arsenal of pitches, some relying on raw power, others on control and finesse. On a good team, as on a good starship crew or in a healthy society, all of these varied elements work together to create a harmonious and flourishing group. Even though we're told it no longer exists as a professional sport, baseball is part of the background noise for all of Deep Space Nine's run. Commander, later Captain, Benjamin Sisko, the show's lead protagonist, is established as a baseball fan from the very first episode. Sisko's appreciation for baseball even becomes relevant to the plot when he uses it as a metaphor to explain linear existence to the timeless aliens who live in the wormhole that is discovered near the titular space station. This tells us two very important things about Sisko right away. First, he really is a baseball fan, because all true baseball fans are constantly finding ways to use baseball as a metaphor for life. We do this to force others to listen to us talk about baseball. Second, despite any appearances to the contrary, Sisko is a massive nerd. In the current year of the real world, 2025, for you folks watching in the future, hey, if you're watching this, that means the internet still exists. That's a good sign, right? Anyway, in reality, in the present day, baseball is on track to becoming a niche interest relative to the other major sports anyway. It's still popular, attended by tens of millions of fans every year, but it's not nearly as popular as it used to be. Not nearly as popular as NFL football, God help us. And it may not be as popular as NBA basketball either, depending on what metric you're using. What I'm saying is, in the United States, right now, today, baseball isn't the cool sport. In the 24th century of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, baseball isn't even a thing. It hasn't existed as an organized professional sport for centuries. Other characters regard Sisko's love of baseball as, at best, a quaint quirk, and at worst, a baffling personality flaw, which, again, very realistic, since that's how most non-baseball fans feel about baseball fans in real life. There's an episode of Deep Space Nine where Sisko tells an alien who has taken the form of his favorite baseball player, Buck Bokai, that he likes to attend recreations of games on the holodeck. That's the future version of having the computer play as both teams on a baseball video game, because you just want to watch a baseball game that bad and you have no better options at the moment. Sisko has a chronic, incurable disease, and the name of that disease is baseball nerd. He's not just a baseball nerd, he taught the game to his son, Jake, so we know he's also a good parent. Sisko's love of the game is what allows the writers of Star Trek Deep Space Nine to do a baseball episode in Season 7 of the series, despite the fact that they have chosen to set their show in a bleak, joyless, baseball-free world. And that episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite, dramatizes all of the benefits of playing and enjoying baseball that I was talking about earlier. Other than Jake, nobody on Sisko's crew on Deep Space Nine knows or cares anything about baseball, but they have to learn in order to humor their boss. There's that realism again. But as they learn, it reinforces their most important values: teamwork, fair play, diversity, all that Star Trek shit. It even teaches Sisko an important lesson when he realizes he's been so laser-focused on winning the game and getting the best of his Vulcan rival, Captain Solik, that he's lost sight of the most important thing about baseball. It's supposed to be fun. Sisko's team, the Niners, takes a majorly lopsided loss to Solik's team, the Logicians, but they're ultimately okay with that because they did their best and they had a good time. It's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. Granted, it's good that they didn't take that lesson too deeply to heart since they were in the middle of fighting a war at the time, but it's still a good principle to remember in many other contexts. Star Trek and baseball share even deeper commonalities than these. They are both long-lasting cultural institutions. They have both lasted long enough to have become multi-generational subjects of knowledge and passion that are passed on from parents to children. They are both popular, but not as popular as other similar attractions. Star Trek is not as popular as Star Wars, and baseball, to our everlasting shame as a nation, is not as popular as football, by which I mean American football, not soccer. I got nothing against soccer as long as I don't have to watch it. Both Star Trek and baseball have evolved over the years, and that evolution has been embraced by some fans and angrily rejected by others. Both Star Trek and baseball are currently struggling with the perception held by some fans that their greatest days are in the past and that the best they can hope for now and in the future is to just wring as much goodwill and profit out of legacy and nostalgia as they can before they inevitably fade away. If we examine the histories of Star Trek and baseball, we'll see many times where they have disappointed us, but we'll also see moments when, at their best, each has been ahead of its time and illuminated a new way forward. In 1947, Jackie Robinson took the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and in so doing became the first black man to play Major League Baseball in the modern era. Did it repeal any Jim Crow laws? No. Did it guarantee anyone's voting rights? No. Did it erase the racist hatred in the hearts of people all over the country? No. But it was a step forward. An all-white professional baseball team becoming integrated at a time when racial segregation was still the norm. The U.S. military wouldn't be desegregated until over a year later, and the most significant advances in the civil rights movement were still almost 2 decades away. Jackie Robinson didn't end racism, but he showed that the racist status quo was not the only way, and his example held incredible symbolic power. 20 years after the debut of Jackie Robinson, Star Trek premiered on television, and in the midst of the most active phase of the Black civil rights movement, showed audiences a model of what an integrated, multiracial, multi-ethnic society based on equality and mutual respect and cooperation might look like. White people, Black people, Asian people, brown people, men and women, people speaking with different accents, including, eventually, a Russian one, at a time when the Russians were regarded as America's greatest global enemy. Can you imagine? Did having Lieutenants Uhura and Sulu on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise end racism? No, of course not. But like Jackie Robinson a generation prior, they set the example. They showed the audience that things could be different, and more, that the audience should want things to be different. Neither Major League Baseball nor Star Trek has a spotless record. In fact, their records both contain some pretty egregious offenses. The only reason Jackie Robinson had to break the color barrier was because the owners of Major League Baseball teams had erected that barrier to begin with, and kept it up for almost 60 years. And just because the major leagues became racially integrated, that doesn't mean they abandoned all other forms of discrimination. They still don't let women play in the majors. In fact, from the time they're young, women and girls are encouraged to avoid baseball altogether. Oh, you want to play baseball with the boys? You're just a girl. Look over here, we've got softball for you. You play that pretty little thing with your ponytail coming out the back of your hat. Star Trek might have led the way when it came to presenting Black characters and other people of color in prominent roles, but for the first 30 years of the franchise, it was still white people in charge, in front of and behind the camera. We didn't see a black lead in a Star Trek show until Deep Space Nine premiered in 1993. We didn't see a black woman lead a Star Trek series until Discovery's first season dropped in 2017. And it wasn't until the current production era kicked off by Discovery that we had non-white creators, writers, directors, producers, etc., contributing to the franchise in significant numbers. We also had to wait until the current production era for Star Trek to feature any explicit on-screen queer representation of note. The franchise has done an admirable job of catching up these last several years, but that doesn't change the fact that for decades, Star Trek, a show frequently and rightly praised as a beacon of progressive and inclusive storytelling, lagged far behind much of the rest of popular culture when it came to showcasing LGBTQ characters and actors. Art, especially popular art, is a way of telling ourselves who we are. Sports can be viewed that way too. For as long as they have been with us, both baseball and Star Trek have shown us who we are. They provide us glimpses of how much better we could be and give us reminders of when we fall short. Over and above all of that, the fluctuating popularity, the changing with the times, the inspiring and disappointing social and political highs and lows, the emeritus status they each enjoy as cultural institutions, there's the most important thing baseball and Star Trek have in common. I really, really like them both. So, given all of these on-screen and off-screen similarities and parallels, why isn't baseball more popular in Star Trek's fictional universe? This sport that lines up so perfectly with the philosophy of these enlightened people in their evolved society, why isn't it the galactic pastime? I think the reason is actually pretty simple. The writers of Deep Space Nine, some of them at least, were baseball fans. Before Deep Space Nine, baseball was rarely, if ever, even mentioned in Star Trek, which means the writers of DS9 not only brought baseball into the franchise, they're also the ones who established that it was no longer a thing in the 24th century. Why would they do that? It might seem paradoxical for writers who are fans of a sport to go out of their way to write references to that sport into their TV show, but then also establish that nobody in their show plays or watches or even knows about that sport. But I bet to my fellow baseball fans out there, it makes perfect sense. Baseball fans exist most of the time in one of two states: childlike optimism and weary resignation. As a result, there's a streak of fatalism in us because we know while we're in the optimistic phase that it won't last, and eventually that resignation will take over. Baseball fans expect bad things to happen. If your favorite team is one that typically doesn't do very well, you get used to bad things happening. That state of resignation settles in and becomes your status quo, and the childlike optimism is confined to occasional flickers of hope. One of the ways we deal with this, to avoid becoming depressed, angry assholes, those of us who do avoid it, is to romanticize our disappointment. We love it when our team is winning, but when our team is losing and we're still supporting it, we convince ourselves that we're ennobled by that. We do that for the entire sport as well. Sure, we'd love it if baseball got more popular, if baseball overtook football and was once again legitimately the national pastime here in the United States, but we don't really expect that to happen. We're resigned to the inevitable decline, and we deal with it by making it into an epic tragedy to which we are all sad, powerless witnesses. So, writing a sci-fi show set centuries in the future and establishing that baseball has faded from popular culture, that's exactly what I'd expect a true baseball fan to do. We're a masochistic bunch. It's not just that, though. We also get off on thinking of ourselves as the keepers of the flame for liking a sport that's less popular than it used to be. It allows us to think of ourselves as better than other people, and that's a good feeling. Sorry, I digress. Where I meant to go with that is there's more to the reason why Deep Space Nine's baseball fan writers would write baseball as a lost sport. By making baseball a relic of the past, it also makes Sisko's fandom something unique and special. It sets him apart. It gives him a thing. Classic Kirk plays chess and collects antiques. Kelvin Kirk has a fondness for motorcycles. Picard is into archaeology and rides horses. Janeway loves coffee. Archer has a dog and likes water polo. Burnham, has a copy of Alice in Wonderland. Pike likes to cook. All the Star Trek captains have a thing. And baseball is Sisko's thing. The baseball on his desk becomes his symbol. It represents him in his absence. When the Starfleet crew is forced to evacuate Deep Space Nine at the end of the show's 5th season and the Cardassians take control of the station, Sisko leaves his baseball behind as a message to Gul Dukat not to get too comfortable in his chair. He does the same thing in the series finale when he goes to be with the prophets in the wormhole. He doesn't say when to expect him, but that baseball on the desk tells Kira and us that Sisko doesn't intend to be away forever. Like baseball in the spring, he'll be back. On that subject, the writers of Deep Space Nine do show us a little bit of the more optimistic side of being a baseball fan. We're told that Major League Baseball is history, but we also see that some people, some places, still play it. Late in the show's 3rd season, Sisko meets freighter captain Cassidy Yates, who he will eventually marry. They really hit it off when Sisko learns that Cassidy, like him, is a baseball fan. Not only that, her brother plays for an organized team, the Pike City Pioneers, who compete in a 6-team league organized at the Cestus 3 colony on the far edge of Federation space. At the start of Season 4, Cassidy gives Sisko the gift of a Pike City Pioneers cap and invites him to come to see a game with her sometime. The journey from Deep Space Nine to Cestus 3 would take weeks, but for Sisko, who never dreamed he would ever get to watch a real live baseball game, it would be worth it. So, Major League Baseball is no more, but baseball survives. Played by colonists, explorers, those who are scratching out new lives at the edge of the frontier, pushing the envelope of human experience ever outward into the cosmos, the hardiest, bravest, and best of humanity. And once again, we see a reflection of reality in the real world. Baseball's popularity wanes here in the United States, but it still goes strong around the world in places where it was exported. The Dominican Republic, Cuba, Japan, South Korea, and more. We may be neglecting our national pastime, but many of those to whom we taught the game continue to cherish it and make it their own and take it into the future, just like those colonists on Cestus 3. Baseball may be all but forgotten on Earth where it was born, but hundreds of light years away, the Pike City Pioneers and their rival teams carry the flame. According to Cassidy, they play with wooden bats, and they don't have designated hitters. Sounds like a little patch of paradise, specifically the Elysian Fields. No poverty, no war, no institutionalized discrimination. Everybody gets along, everybody has enough, life is peaceful and abundant, and there are still live baseball games. You just need to travel to the edge of human civilization to watch one. Like I said, just about perfect.